Hello everyone. I want to talk about knitting because when you're going through cancer treatment, often you just don't know what to do with yourself. You need to stop your mind racing with thoughts, concerns for the future, how treatment will work out, and anything that can focus your attention away from that is going to be therapeutic. It's going to rest your brain. And I've taken up knitting again recently, in the last year, about a year ago, after 30 years of not knitting. I was never a particularly adept knitter. I learnt in school, and when I first got married I just knitted a couple of tops. But I thought I would give it a try. I think it's really good to stop yourself having those little habits, and you need something to keep your hands busy. I've tried myself with gloves, keeping gloves on, that's difficult. And I did find when I was going through cancer that I was doing this all the time, and that's not good for you. And some people twizzle their hair and then they get a dead arm, and all sorts of ways of expressing anxiety. So with knitting, it's so satisfying because you are being creative, which is another good way of helping depression with the creative part of the brain. My husband got me this mug and it says, "Knitting keeps me from unravelling." If you get yourself into your safe place, your happy place, and get yourself comfortable, even when you're going through chemotherapy or you're not feeling your best, your energy levels are low, you can still be doing something. And you can put the television on as well, or you can listen to music, have some lovely relaxing music in the background, even have an aromatherapy candle. And I'll just show you my happy place. You can see that it's my armchair. This is my V pillow that I've spoken about before, that made such a difference to my muscle in my back here, and I can get myself all nice and comfortable. I've got my footstool, my blanket if I get cold. I've got my nice lamp behind me to give me a bit of light so I can see better to knit. And then beside me I've got my tissues, I've got my emery board in case I get a nail that's a bit sharp. I've got cuticle oil, which again, that'll help you stop you nibbling and help your nails. If you rub that in every day, that will help your nails to stay strong and not to break off and be brittle. And then I've got nail teaks, which is a protein that you can paint on every day to strengthen your nails. And I've got all my other bits and pieces for my knitting around me. So if you get yourself prepared and you have it around you, you won't have to keep getting up and down if you're not feeling great. I've got my lip salve, I always have to have that. And then I've got my tape measure. And beside me I've got two lots of work. I've got the top that I'm just sewing at. This is the bit that I really dislike, is sewing it together. So what I would just say, to avoid the mistakes that I made, putting the wrong sides together and having to unpick and start sewing it together again, I use these, look like safety pins but they're plastic, and what they are is knitting markers. And I just place it all together and put the safety pins, markers, where it looks like it should be, and then turn it inside out and check that you haven't got a sleeve in the wrong way. And what I would say about that is, don't do it when you're tired. Don't sew a garment together at the end of the day, or if you've had a glass of wine, because you'll end up doing it wrong and then you'll be frustrated. That's the last thing we need. So I'm going to sew that one up. What I'm wearing is actually one of my tops, which is my favourite pattern, and this is really straightforward. It's rib at the bottom, and then it's just one row knit, one row purl, stocking stitch up, and then it just, you decrease because it's a raglan sleeve. The same with these sleeves. It's a little bit tricky sewing it together when you come to the top. You can't quite see it in your mind, but if you Google how to put together a raglan sleeve, then there's loads of tutorials on YouTube, and each time when I started knitting again and I couldn't remember how to add a stitch or a yarn forward movement, then I just went and I watched some nice lady demonstrate on YouTube, which, as we know, is all amazing. So that's how you start. Basically some yarn and some needles. I wouldn't get them as long as these, because when I'm knitting it bumps against the arm of the chair, which is a bit annoying. And I'm going to get some shorter needles when I can. I've got a nice bag which has got lots of pockets, but you don't need that. I mean, that's kind of later on if you decide that you really are going to stick with knitting. And it's nice to my husband now, because if he wants to get me a present, he can get me things to do with knitting. So he got me this to put your yarn on so that it spins and keeps it tidy. Doesn't fit all balls though. And then I've got my bag here with almost bare yarn, which I love. So I get it from a variety of places. Hobbii, that are in Denmark, they're good. They do this rainbow 8/6 yarn. I always knit with cotton because I get hot flushes and I don't like itchiness. So I itch enough as it is without some sort of itchy wool. But the cotton I find is lovely against my skin, and if I do a sleeve to here, then I don't get too hot even if I have a hot flush. And that size of sleeve, at my age, it covers the worst parts of my arms, so that's great. So I've got that pink, and I've got some nice yellow, which I'll make a top with spring colours now. And I've just started a white cardigan. So I've got a couple of cream ones that I've made, but I thought this would be really useful come the spring, and it'll go with everything. So when it comes to casting on, I mean, that's where you start really easy. You just wind the thread round your two needles and make a double knot, and then you go through the loop of the yarn, and then your right hand, you pull the yarn around the right hand needle, which is behind the left, you push it down and you pull it through. That forms a new loop which you put over your left hand needle, so that's your next stitch. Then you go into that stitch, wrap around, pull it through, and you've got another stitch. You go through the loop of the yarn, and then your right hand, you pull the yarn around the right hand needle, which is behind the left, you push it down and you pull it through. That forms a new loop which you put over your left hand needle, so that's your next stitch. Then you go into that stitch, wrap around, pull it through, and you've got another stitch. So what you should do really to start with, if you've never knitted before, have a look on YouTube for some tutorials for basics, and do some squares. Just cast on 20 or 30 stitches and then make a square in stocking stitch, then see how to cast off, and then you've got your first square. and you can do other colours maybe, or all squares in the same, and then sew them together and to make a small blanket. Maybe it's a blanket to put over your knees when you're in your happy place watching television. Maybe it's a baby's blanket, and maybe you'll make it bigger and bigger, and it won't be able to stop, and it'll go over the bed. So have a go at that. Then if you want to move on, I found the best thing is to get a pattern book rather than just a single pattern. And this was the one I started with that the lady in the wool shop suggested for me, and it was about £5 or £6, but there are 9 patterns in there, and I worked my way through it, and then I bought book 2. So it's Finesse Cotton Silk DK, book 1, King Cole, and you can get this online from Deramores, as along with the yarn, and generally I'll buy the yarn when it's on offer from either Hobbii or Deramores or Lovecraft. There are loads of yarn sellers out there online, but those are the ones I just happened across and I've been really pleased with. And some of the yarn, like this 50-gram balls of 8x6, it's about £1, you know, £1.09, because I bought so much, and the more you buy then the cheaper it is. And I think this top that I made probably cost me about £9. So I feel it's really worthwhile, and I knitted it to my own specifications. The original pattern has got a tie on the side, so I've got 2 of those, but that got in the way really and kept coming undone. So I just did the back the same as the front and back. And what I find is that it skims over my middle. So if I wear t-shirts, they just cling around the middle, but this garment just skims over it, which is lovely. So it really is useful, it is creative, it is something to take your mind off, something to do when you don't know what to do with yourself. And I really think it's worth a try, even if you just get a couple of balls of wool, because even if it's tricky, you're not thinking about cancer treatment while you're doing it, because you've got to focus on it. And that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm making these videos, is that I want to help you to feel better, be less afraid, and give your poor old brain a rest. So if you've got any comments, or you give it a try and you've got anything to say, please put them below. Please give a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe, because then all my videos, which cover other subjects as well to do with cancer treatment and recovery, will be made more available to cancer patients